This is your Chapter 3 review, so we're going to be working on solving equations in this section. We'll start off with some easier ones. So when we get to a 1 or 2 step solving problem, make sure that I'm going to skip down to steps 4, 5, and 6. Make sure that we undo subtraction and addition first. Remember, they are inverses, so they undo each other. Then, lastly, we'll undo multiplication and division, and they undo each other. So in other words, when we start undoing, we undo the order of operations backwards. So we start on the bottom and undo upwards. So here we have 1/2 times x minus 6 equals 12. So x is on the left side of the equation. It's being subtracted by 6 and multiplied by 1/2. So I undo the subtraction first by adding 6. The negative 6 and the positive 6 are 0, so they're gone off the left side. I'm left with 1/2 x equals 18. So then, to undo multiplying x by a fraction, I multiply it by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/2 is 2/1. And what I do to the other side, what I do to one side, I do to the other side. So I'm multiplying 18 by 2/1, which is really the same as 2. On the left, 2/1 times 1/2 is the same as 1. So I'm left with 1x. And 18 times 2 is 36. And 36 divided by that 1 is still just 36. So 36 is the solution. If you were to go back up here and take half of 36, you get 18. 18 minus 6 equals 12. It is a solution. Example 2, looks like x is on the right. It's getting divided by 3 and multiplied by 4. You could do this in 2 steps or just 1 step. To undo dividing by 3, we would multiply by 3. So you could do that right now. So I would get 4x equals 36. And then to undo multiplying by 4, we will divide by 4. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I get 36 divided by 4, which is 9. Oops. And over here, the 4 is canceled out. Multiplying something by 4 and then dividing it by 4 undoes it. So we get x equals 9. And you could go back and take 9 times 4 and divide it by 3, and you should get 12, and you do. Holy cow, these get a little tougher. Example 3 is as large of an equation as you're going to see here. So let's go to our whole process. We'll need that here. So, which side of the equation is the variable on? It's on both sides. If a variable is on both sides, undo the side with a smaller coefficient. If variables are on the same side, combine like terms. Let's see, variables are on both sides. And on this left side, I see that there's a couple of variables. Well, there's a couple of y's that we need to combine. So I'm going to simplify this left side first by distributing and combining like terms. So what can I distribute? See, I see these parentheses here, and there's really like a 1 in front of that, but it's a -1. So I'm distributing a -1 into the parentheses. So that becomes -5y and -6. And let's drop down that -4y out in front. So -4y plus -5y plus -6 equals -7y plus 3. On the left, we can combine the -4y and the -5y. That probably looked like a fraction bar, which I did not mean. So I'm just going to underline the like terms. So I'm going to identify the like terms by putting a little squiggle underneath them. These are like terms right here. I will combine them. So I get negative 9y minus 6 equals negative 7y plus 3. So from here we have variables on each side. You want to undo either the negative 9y or the negative 7y by adding the opposite. I like to get rid of the side with the smaller coefficient, and negative 9 is actually smaller than negative 7. On the number line it's farther to the left, so it is smaller. So I'm going to add positive 9y to each side. A negative 9y and a positive 9y are 0. So I get negative 6 equals 2y plus 3. So now I've gotten y to the right side of the equal sign. Now I just have to undo what's being done to the y. So I have to undo adding 3 by subtracting 3. And I have to undo multiplying it by 2 by dividing it by 2. So I get y equals negative 4.5. If you can simplify one side and or the other, do it by distributing and combining like terms, if possible. Then get the y's or the variable to one side by undoing one of them from one of the sides. This one, I don't know if I meant to put that in a box or not, but I'll do it. This one is a really tricky one. So we identify the x's on the left, but when we ask ourselves what's being done to it, a lot of mistakes happen. So x is getting multiplied by what? It's getting multiplied by a negative 2. And if it helps, when you see a minus sign, add the opposite. This is really equivalent to writing 5 plus negative 2 times x. So I'm going to make a little list of what's being done to x right now. It's getting multiplied by negative 2. And then it's also getting added to by 5. That minus sign right here affects the value after it and makes it negative. That 5 is positive. That 5 is getting tacked on to the negative 2x. So the first thing we have to undo is adding 5 by subtracting 5. So we get negative 2x equals negative 6. Last step, divide by negative 2. We get x equals 3.